This coming Sunday is the 31st Sunday in Ordinary Time. We continue to take our gospel accounts from Mark's Gospel during this year B. Our current liturgical year will end with the beginning of Advent in just a few weeks. The passage is one that is likely familiar to us. Jesus is asked to comment on the commandments. We know that there are 10 commandments, and yet in this passage, Jesus gives us a kind of shortcut summary that can be helpful for us. The passage is Mark chapter 12, verses 28 to 34. Let's take a listen. One of the scribes came to Jesus and asked him, "Which is the first of all the commandments?" Jesus replied, "The first is this, 'Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." The scribe said to him, "Well said, teacher. You are right in saying he is one, and there is no other than he. And to love him with all your heart, with all your understanding, with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself is worth more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices." And when Jesus saw that he answered with understanding, he said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And no one dared to ask him any more questions. When we consider the 10 Commandments, we know that in essence they do concern our relationship with God and our relationship with our neighbor. The shorthand, 2 commands, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, can be helpful for us as we make all kinds of decisions in the course of a day. We can ask ourselves, for example, will this decision show my love for God, or will this decision be loving towards my neighbor? The commandments are a means for us to take the focus off our own selfish desires, our own self-centeredness, our own greed, our own pride. The commandments and the 2 commandments given to us in the gospel today call us to focus on God and our neighbor. The decision I make today does have an impact on my relationship with God and my relationship with my neighbor. Well, I should say not all decisions have that weightiness to them. Whether I order apple pie or pumpkin pie for dessert is not a moral decision. How husbands and wives negotiate household decisions, or how decisions about child raising or being a good steward of the family's resources, all of these are weightier kinds of decisions. While we are at the center of the important decisions that we make, we are called upon to consider the ramifications of that decision with regard to my relationship with God and with my neighbor. In the gospel passage, Jesus congratulates the scribe who understands how these 2 commandments are joined together. We read, "And when Jesus saw that he answered with understanding, he said to him, 'You are not far from the kingdom of God.'" Following through on the twin commandments to love God and our neighbor then puts us on the right path to the kingdom of God. It helps us to learn God's way, God's plan. We embrace a selfless, kind, generous posture towards my relationship with God and my neighbor. It might sound easy to love God and love our neighbor, but we know all too well that day in and day out, it is not always that easy. And so our need to keep turning back to the Master, to Jesus and the example he gives us. During this month of November, we remember in prayer all souls, our deceased loved ones. We've placed our book of remembrance here close to the sanctuary in front of the statues of Mary and Joseph, let us keep all our dearly departed in prayer. Let the gospel fill your week. See you in church. For now, God bless.